Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's push to annex territories in the occupied West Bank entered a critical political window on Wednesday. But with his government divided, the White House indecisive, and domestic opposition mounting, a formal announcement could be weeks or even months away. The scale and scope of the planned annexation remains unclear. The latest plan, described as counter-proposal by Netanyahu to the Trump administration's original conceptual map for possible annexation, showed Jewish enclaves deep in Palestinian designated territories growing, presumably to appease right-wing settlers. But it also called for compensating the Palestinians by handing them some of the hills overlooking Ben Gurion International Airport, which Israeli hawks had once considered too strategically vital to give away. And Saeb Erekat, chief Palestinian negotiator, joins us now from Ramallah. Thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Mr. Erekat, we're hearing that Fatah and Hamas will make a historical joint announcement today on a plan to counteraction to Israel's annexation plans. Who would have thought that annexation plans would bring the two parties together? But what can we expect to hear from the two parties today?
I think you will hear a determination of all Palestinian people to stand up against the annexation and to stand up for their rights and for their survival, because annexation translates into Palestinian minds as the undermining of Palestinian national aspirations, national dignity, and annexation is the graveyard of the Palestinian national project and Palestinian independence, self-determination, and a two-state solution. So Palestinians all over Earth, actually 13 million Palestinians, I have never seen such movements and in all capitals on Earth, in all places on Earth, to rally together, to join together against one common thing, which is annexation and the undermining of the Palestinian national project.
It's a rare occasion, again, I want to reiterate, to see Hamas and Fatah speaking in one voice. How did you manage to coordinate that?
I wouldn't say that we'll speak with one voice. Hamas will be Hamas, Fatah will be Fatah. But I think, like when you form coalitions, when we have 26 political parties in Palestine, and then you find a common ground. And everyone now has one common thing that nobody disagrees with, is that we need to stand tall against Netanyahu-Trump's deal, the deal of annexation and apartheid, and the annexation plan of Prime Minister Netanyahu that aims to undermine the possibility of a Palestinian state.
Okay. Mr. Erekat, I think no one knows negotiations with Israel better than you. Both Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority came out in the last few days saying that they're willing to resume talks between the sides. Is it possible that we will actually see a return to the negotiating table after such a long halt?
Well, it was Netanyahu who shut down the negotiations and closed it. Actually, on 24th of April, 2014, I was with Sivi Livni, Yitzhak Milcho, Majid Faraj, and Martin Indyk when he declared that no more negotiations because we signed an agreement with Hamas at that time called Shatta Agreement to make the reconciliation. Absolutely. All the Israeli government has an option. They can go to annexation, dictation, unilateral steps, kill the peace process, put Palestinians and Israelis on harm's way forever, no negotiated settlements ever. Or they can say, we want to resume negotiations based on international law agreements signed. Because what's the contractual nature between my relation with the UAE? What's the relationship between the PLO and Israel? It was a contract called DOP, Declaration of Principle, that was signed, that had mutual recognition between Israel and the PLO. They defined 6 issues: Jerusalem, border, settlement, refugees, water security. And they said that no side should take any step that may preempt or prejudge the results of these issues. Now, the term annexation is a total departure from this contract. So he needs to cancel annexation.
Let's talk about the scenario in which negotiations actually resume and take place. Are you somewhat optimistic that maybe out of this very bad sort of plan that Netanyahu came up with something positive might arise? Perhaps now the conditions are ripe with Gantz at his side and this sort of coalition that he's heading. Perhaps you would be able to move forward with the Israeli side in negotiating and not in a unilateral move?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you don't choose who you negotiate with. Negotiation is a civilized instrument of people who have conflict and who sit down because it's the least costly method to reach agreement. And what Palestinians and Israelis need to understand, that negotiation is about finding a common ground that both can stand in front of their people and they say, we did not get everything we want, but what we got is fair. Let's vote for it. And will Netanyahu allow this to happen? So far, in my experience with this prime minister, no, I don't see any of this, because he really believes that these issues have been negotiated by divine power. He's not a two-stater. But we hope and urge that, this happens, because if it doesn't happen today, it's going to happen in 20, 50, 100 years. There are Palestinians who are saying one state, equal rights, which is a civilized concept. Jews, Muslims, and Christians can live equal. But it's not going to happen. Israelis will not accept it. And what Netanyahu is introducing now is one state, two systems, apartheid, which also is not going to happen. So the only option for Palestinians and Israelis is to live and let live in each in their own state. State of Palestine with East Jerusalem's capital, to live side by side in peace and security with the state of Israel in 1967. Will Netanyahu agree to this? That's the question you should ask him. My experience with him, I can tell you he's not a two-stater.
Okay. Mr. Saeb Erekat, Chief Palestinian Negotiator from the Palestinian Authority, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
And most settlers and their leadership are highly disappointed that annexation didn't take place yesterday. Last night, we spoke to Member of Parliament Sharina Skel from the Likud, who expects Israel to head to its fourth election round soon.
I have to say that, first of all, it's very disappointing. It's not just disappointing here. Many Israelis who's been looking for sovereignty for decades, but it's also actually really disappointing to many Americans as well. Many of the Christian communities that actually supported this move. I'm absolutely certain that obviously now that the American delegation is here and there's some negotiations, the Prime Minister said that almost every couple of days he's going to sit and negotiate and come to an agreement in order to bring it as quickly as possible. I can tell you straight and clear, if there's not going to be sovereignty, we're going to go into elections.
She'll wait and see. 24 hours after British Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned Israel that he would not recognize the annexation of the West Bank, the chairman of the Yesha Council, David El-Khayani, replies in an open letter on the same Israeli paper, Yediot Ahronot, saying, "You are an important friend, but we must take our own decisions. We didn't act to get the British out of this land in order to return backwards 73 years later." Those are the words of David El-Khayani.